Welcome to Animal Football Insider, your weekly look into the happenings of your Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Florida Gators, and all things related to football. And now, from West Des Moines, Iowa, here's your host, The Animal.
The Animal, and Nelly, we welcome you to this edition of the Animal Football Insider, coming at you live and direct from the confines of West Des Moines, Iowa, on a night where question abounds about the future of the blue and orange, where positivity still remains, but they still wonder, is he still the guy to coach the team? We're going to talk about all that tonight with a couple of guys that know just a little bit about Florida Gator football. My good friend Lucas Mann, who joined us later on to talk about the recruiting, what's going on. We got some news out of that. But before we bring on my very special guest, let's talk about in review about last Saturday as the Florida Gators took on Samford, and what was the first time back at home in 5 weeks as they took on FCS team Samford. And it was not the game that everybody expected, as the Florida Gators gave up a lot of points in the first half. Yeah, the Gators came back and was able to take over in the second half and win the game. But it's the way that the game was played that caused a little bit of controversy or a little bit of more questions about that. Always a man that likes to have controversy in his own right, a man that I've been trying to get on board for quite a while. And now he's been able to join me tonight when he heard the sounds of Bud Light. He is Nick Delatorre of Gators Territory, Florida Rivals, formerly with Gator Country. He knows this Florida Gator team inside and out, just like the back of his hand. Yes. And Nick, as we join you tonight, I think this time when the season began, we figured at this point this Florida Gator team would be on a roll and doing some very good things, but it just hasn't happened yet. And by the way, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I think before the year, my prediction, probably not a great prediction. I was like, if everything goes perfectly, I think Florida could be 10-2. Realistic would probably be 9-3. And then I pointed out, I was like, if you look, they kind of lose some games maybe they shouldn't. So in 2018, you can look at that Missouri game that they lost. Certainly last year losing to LSU. There's always kind of a game that creeps up. Kentucky, I think in Dan's first year also is a game they probably shouldn't have lost. So I said, 9-3, but maybe 8-4. And I mean, even after losing to Georgia, I thought, 8-4 is still possible. And, you get to 9 wins after a bowl game. I don't think anybody in the world, including Shane Beamer, expected the Florida-South Carolina game to go the way that it did. So it's been a pretty tumultuous last 5 weeks, I would say, for Florida and for Dan Mullen.
And what was and you even go back to when they took on Kentucky. I mean, this was a team that was winning about as often as Lucas Mann winning the lottery, which was hardly ever to happen whatsoever. But and they just did not play worth the darn. And everybody's saying that after that great performance by Alabama, they kind of started slacking off, and it kind of kept getting worse and worse. And you tend to wonder, did this team get a little bit above its raisins after that Alabama game, thinking that they're probably better than what they actually were?
Maybe. I certainly left the first 2 weeks of the season, Florida's leading the country in rushing. And I'm thinking to myself, is this fool's gold? Because he did it against FAU and USF. Is this a fake product because of the team that they're playing? And then I look and I think, after the Alabama game, even in a loss, I'm like, I feel better about Florida this Sunday after losing to Alabama than I felt the first 2 weeks. And then you just watch Florida and I think something we haven't talked about, and maybe it's part of the writer's problem. We haven't really written about it. I think losing Ventrell Miller is a huge loss for that defense, especially when it comes to stopping the run. He really excelled there. We don't really talk about the loss of Miller for this team because it happened so long ago. But I don't see the same kind of domination. Florida was more physical than Alabama up front on both sides of the ball, but we're talking defense. And I don't see that. I saw Sanford's offensive line getting a push, and South Carolina did it consistently. So I find myself asking, where is that Florida defensive line, and where is that Florida defense that showed up against Alabama? Where have they been since September?
Exactly, and it's like, what has and everybody was thinking after the Alabama game. Everybody's like, okay, we're going to settle down. We're going to get off the Todd Grantham's back. He may be doing something good here. Didn't happen. Then they made the change after South Carolina. But, Nick, I often wonder, why not make that change after the Georgia, even before the Georgia game, when you had 2 weeks to prepare for them? I mean, it was like, why not go ahead and make that change at Georgia? There's one criticism I have about Dan Mullen, late to the game and making the change.
You mean making the change with Todd Grantham?
Yes.
I think he's probably a year late to making that change. I think I can be skeptical when coaches are talking in press conferences and things like that, but I believe Dan Mullen when he said, I had made my mind up that I was going to make these decisions and I was going to move on from them after the year. I think certainly the friendship he had with John Hevesy goes back 20 years. They were on the Bowling Green staff under Urban Meyer in 2001. So that's a 2-decade-long, at least, friendship. He'd been with Todd for 6 years. That's a friendship. You're working every day tirelessly. So, and you're probably spending more time with these guys than you spend with your family, especially during the fall. So for me, it was, you can hide that news. Florida can release or let it leak out that John Hevesy and Todd Grantham are going to be fired or not renewed. You can release that an hour before the SEC championship game. It kind of gets buried in the shuffle, and it's less embarrassing for those coaches. I think when you do it in the middle of a season, it's its own news story. There's not really anything else to kind of bury it. So I think it's embarrassing for those coaches. And I don't know if this is true or not, but it's my opinion that Dan was trying to save his friends the embarrassment of being fired midway through the year. I think that's an admirable trait. But honestly, what happened with Dan and what we're seeing now is last year, all of the ire of the fan base and the anger was towards Todd Grantham. And when Dan didn't make a move away from Todd last year, that shifted from Todd to Dan. And it's now, hey, we're still going to be mad at Todd when, teams convert on 3rd and 27, but you're allowing it to happen now. So now we're angry at you because you could have changed it and could have made a change. And you could have stopped this. So when he fails, now you're failing. So I think that spotlight shifted from Todd to Dan when Dan didn't make the move. And I think some people were happy that the move was made, but a lot of people will say, it might be too little too late.
Well, and Colin going along, who's a listener, a follower of the show, also on the Buddy Martin Show, says, moral of the story, don't hire your friends. I mean, that's perfect. Speaking of the beginning of the year, reports came out that Dan Mullen wanted to fire these guys, but Scott Strickland would not let them. What do you know about this? Did this ever happen?
No, I've read that and heard that. I think that's more message board rumor or social media rumor than anything else.
And going back to the firing and how it happened, do you have any information on how that went down? Is there a backstory to this that you can talk about?
I don't know how much that I can talk about. I'm of the opinion, though, that move was probably there was probably some pressure applied to Dan to make the move after South Carolina, because for all the reasons that I pointed out before, I use the golf analogy. I'll save that for a second. But I think Dan was probably told, like, hey, if you're making this move at the end of the year, it needs to be done now. Like what happened on Saturday in Columbia is not acceptable in any form or fashion. You're not just losing to South Carolina. That's a bad South Carolina team for pre-Spurrier South Carolina standards. That's a bad South Carolina team.
Yes.
So that was unacceptable. I think, not that his hand was forced, but probably told, like, hey, if you're making the moves after the year, they need to be made now.
And it comes in now, and now that these moves it has been made, there's been a lot of talk. Let's bring on Lane Kiffin. Let's bring on Manny Diaz. Miami fired his AD this past week, leaving Manny Diaz's future in doubt. Would Manny Diaz want to come and play for a Dan Mullen team?
Maybe, perhaps, if he's looking for a job, if he's not retained at Miami and he's looking for a job, he was Dan's defensive coordinator at Mississippi State, and we've talked about Dan wanting to hire friends. So Manny Diaz would be a name that has already coached for Dan Mullen. He was Dan Mullen's defensive coordinator, and then what happened is he took the job at Temple, and I think he was at Temple for 2 weeks. And then Miami opened up, and there was a chance for him to go home, and he left Temple and went to Miami. So that's a name certainly that, given the familiarity with Dan already, if he's available, would be a name that I would put immediately onto my defensive coordinator hot board.
Let's get into the game on. By the way, he's Nick Della Torre of Gators Territory. Yours truly, the Animal. This edition of the Animal Football Insider. Saturday's game was not one of the more pleasant games, and we all know about that. Certainly, the criticism and everybody's been very upset, and they probably have voiced their criticism from the stands. Unfortunately, several of the players' relatives, be it moms or dads, what have you, have heard those conversations, including one of
Trina Jones.
Trina Jones. Okay, Trina Jones, the mother of Emory Jones. Tell us what happened there, and because Garrett McGee talked about that last night.
Yeah, it's I've dealt with this. A lot of our job, and they don't really teach you this in journalism school, but a lot of our job as journalists is relationships, whether that's with the president of the university, the athletic director, an assistant coach, a trainer, or parents, players. And I've had close relationships with a lot of moms of players. I go back a long time. I can go to Monique Dawson, was one of my favorite people, Duke Dawson's mom.
Okay.
I met her. We just so happened to both fly out of Orlando to Oregon for the opening, the year that Duke was in it. And we just happened to be sitting next to each other, and we became, fast friends on a cross country flight. You're sitting next to somebody. There's not many other options. So
that's the way you build those relationships. Yeah. That's awesome.
And Duke never got that, but a lot of people were down on Marcel Harris, and that's a cousin to Duke. So going back as far as 2013, 14, I've had parents telling me how bad fans can be towards players. And it's not a Florida-specific thing. I think it probably happens at a lot of colleges around the country. But I think a lot of it is you just kind of get desensitized and you forget that they're humans, that there's people under those helmets, and you cheer so fervently for the University of Florida, and you want the University of Florida to be great and everything that it does, but you forget that it's an 18, 19, 20-year-old person who's going to make mistakes, who's going to, throw interceptions or fumble the ball, and nobody's going to be harder on them than themselves in that moment. And then you forget that the person next to you in the stands might be mom or dad. I had a Florida baseball player, father, in the last couple of years tell me that he couldn't go to a game without hearing something negative about his son. And I couldn't imagine, I don't have children of my own, but I couldn't imagine the restraint a father has to have to not, turn around and clock somebody. It's tough. And I don't want to tell fans to be less passionate, but I think we just lose the human element of it a lot of times.
Yeah, and as the comic said, she's putting this out herself back when even Urban Meyer was here, so I think you can relate to that. I'm just hoping that it doesn't build up to the point that Emory Jones says, this isn't worth it. I'm going somewhere else. Speaking of going somewhere else, we've heard a lot of talk of Anthony Richardson entering his name in the portal when the year's in. These guys have a tight relationship on and off the field. Talk a little bit about that behind the scenes from what you can tell us.
Yeah, it's maybe I'm getting old and cynical, but I'm cautious because everyone says they're best friends, and I know that Kyle Trask and Felipe Franks didn't hate each other, but they weren't going to movies together or going on double dates with their girlfriends, stuff like that. Like they're teammates, but you don't have to be best friends. There's over 100 guys in the locker room. You're not gonna be best friends with everyone in the locker room. So when I hear Emory and Anthony say, yeah, we love each other, I'm like, man, that's a tight competition. Like you can easily start to grow some resentment when you're not playing or if the other guy's playing more and things like that. But I think it's a truly genuine friendship. These guys are always joking around with each other. You see them together on the way to practice. Anthony, after games, is waiting for Emory to finish his media session, and then they leave together. So I think there's a really unique bond that those two guys have had. It's certainly not a perspective that I had at that age, at 19, 20 years old. I wasn't going to be friends with the guy starting over me when I was playing baseball in high school and in college. So I think it is a genuine friendship that the two of them have.
Hang on a second. Did you ever play professional baseball at all? Did you play minor league baseball? Because
No.
when you mentioned baseball, the last name just started clicking in my head about something. But
no, I wish that was the plan.
This animal does have a mind, so we won't go into that any further. Just a couple of minutes more with you. I know you got to get ready because you're flying to Columbia. I'm going to be there. So if you're at a namely hotspot in Missouri, maybe we can catch up and I'll buy a refresher your fee for coming on the show. Because I know it costs a lot to get you on here. What do we look at for the future now? For Dan, obviously he wins the final two games. I think he stays. Okay. Your observation right now as we sit here tonight and get ready for Missouri than FSU.
Yeah, I think to like steal a scene from Remember the Titans where one of the coaches tells Denzel Washington's character, at the first sign of trouble, they'll fire you. I don't know that Dan can afford to lose either of the next two games. Right now, Dan's buyout is friendly to Florida. Yes, it's $12 million, but it's $12 million if they fire him tomorrow or if they fire him in 2 years. Florida has 6 assistant coaches coming off the books after this season. 2 of them were Todd Grantham and John Hevesy. So if you look at it and you keep Dan, you're going to have to probably convince some other coaches to come on with him next year that, hey, we're not going to get rid of him. You're not going to be looking for a new job in a year. And to do that, you might have to pay them more money or give them 3-year contracts instead of 2-year contracts. And then if you feel this way about Dan in a year, well, now you still have to pay Dan the same money you would have paid him after this season, and you have all these new contracts. It's the University of Florida. I don't think, $8 million is going to sway their opinion one way or the other. I just put that out because a lot of people didn't know how many expiring contracts were out. But I think I think Florida, the administrators and the decision makers' eyes were opened when Florida lost in the way that it lost to South Carolina. And then the first half against Samford didn't make them feel any better about where the program is. I've said all season, I thought it was just a bad year. And I feel like Dan's personally trying to prove me wrong that it's just a bad year. But I think Dan, I don't know if he personally will ever be a great recruiter, but I think when I see personal growth from him, when he moves on from some of his friends, when he moved on from John Hevesy, and he moved on from Todd Grantham, I see personal growth. And if you can realize and look inside yourself and say, hey, I'm never going to be personally the kind of tireless recruiter that Kirby is. So I need to surround myself with a coordinator and coaches that can do that.
And speaking of Kirby, he set Dan Mullen up by the comments he made after the win of Florida, talking about recruiting. We knew what he was doing, and now that this audio that came out at halftime of the Florida game, it's just putting Dan Mullen under the microscope even more.
Yeah, he's talking directly to Dan during those comments.
Yeah, exactly. And then I thought that was a very, very unhealthy thing to do. Speaking of somebody that's under a lot of pressure, Scott Strickland and his situation. We know about the Cam Newbauer situation, what's going on there. Does he survive all this? Give us a real quick observation of that. What do you think about him?
Well, it's interesting because his boss, Kent Fox, is under an investigation, and Congress is going to look into Florida's decision-making in not allowing several of their professors to testify. So you have, from the top down, the president hires the AD hires the football coach. If the president's in hot water, and maybe I think his contract is up in May, maybe he retires. He came to Florida with the goal of making Florida a top 5 academic institution. He's achieved that goal. If he leaves, does the new president want to deal with Scott Strickland? And I like Scott. I think Scott's done.
I love Scott.
I think Scott's done. I mean, he was the AD of the year his first year at Florida.
Yeah.
So, but does the president want to keep the AD around since there's this women's basketball stuff and Scott and Cam Newbauer? And then if you get a new president and a new AD, if Scott gets rid of Dan this year and hires a new coach, and then there's a new AD in a year, that's not the guy that he's attached to. So there's just a lot of moving pieces at Florida. I
didn't even know about the investigation into President Fuchs thing. He hasn't been there 5 years?
Yeah, I think he'll be 67 soon.
How long has he been at the president of the University of Florida?
Not long, maybe 5 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I find that interesting. I didn't even know about that. I know you're busy. I know you got to get going, pack some bags, and go to Columbia and visit the hot spots, and hopefully we'll meet up somewhere, and I can buy a nice little cold one or two. Nick, thank you so much. You're welcome to come on anytime. Love to have you. And if you have more time, then we can discuss this further.
I appreciate it. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you in Columbia.
I will. But real quick, tell everybody who you write for. Tell a bit about your magazine, please.
Yeah. The website is Gators Territory. It's florida.rivals.com. You can find me there where I write. You can find me on Twitter. It's @Delatorre. And if you listen to podcasts, it's Stadium and Gale. I got it on my cup.
Okay.
And you can listen to that, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Awesome. And again, thank you so much. I know you've been busy, but please come on and join me anytime. I would love to have you. Thank you, Nick. God bless, and we'll see you in Columbia. Nick Delatorre, people. Thank you, sir. Nick Delatorre joining me here tonight. We're going to get into more of this here in just a minute. We got a couple of people in the green room. We're going to bring them on in just a minute. But, this whole Emory Jones and Trina Jones story just really irks, to an extent that just boils my blood, okay? These are people that come, these are the parents of these players who come and watch their kids play. And the fans who are sitting in these stands, they're familiar with who's sitting there. Now, I can understand the fans' anger. I can understand their frustration. But when you say some of the things that you say about your son, it becomes demoralizing. And it's gotten to the point now where she would not even come to the games at the University of Florida. And it becomes so upsetting to me. And it's like now that these fans are just, they've come into a new, I don't know what it is, but it's causing a lot of problems. And when recruits see that, when recruits are seeing things like this happen, it affects the University of Florida as well. There is no reason why anything like this should be happening. None whatsoever. I mean, if you want to come in and yell at Gator Booster because he writes bad stories or things like that, fine, do it. But don't ever yell at the fans, at the players when you have the relatives standing right there. It is uncalled for. It is unspeakable. It is disgusting. You better start talking, Gator Booster. Otherwise, I'm
No,
just
I
going to
look.
blow it up. You know.
Look, I agree. It's uncalled for, and the sad thing about it is, and I've said this multiple times before, the same fans that do those things would any day take a signed autograph or take a picture with that kid and pat him on the back and say, "Hey, good job." But then yet they turn around and talk like that. I mean, it's absurd that we're living that kind of day. If you don't really support them, then you might as well take all that stuff away because to me that's just absurd that they do that. Look, you can criticize all you want. Be supportive of the kids though, especially with the parents. Be supportive of them. We're there to cheer these guys on, regardless. Okay, they made a mistake. Well, let's correct those mistakes and move forward. Go to the next play. So, I mean, that's just what it is. And there's a lot of frustration with the Florida fan base, and there always has been a lot of criticism to the players. So I agree that especially in the stadiums with their parents there, and now they don't even want to come. I mean, that's not good. It's not a good look. It's not a good look for the university.
No, no, no. Of course it's not. But yet, when you're on the field and you see a Lucas Demand Gator dropping a pass or making a stupid play, yeah, you're going to yell at him for that, you know. So, but we can just ignore that and move on. He's Gator Brewster.
What's
He's
up?
Lucas the Gator Man. How are you, Lucas?
I'm doing pretty good. No,
All right.
by the way, by the way, by
We
the
are
way,
going to get.
I watched your interview with Nick. Great job.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. And I meant I was going to ask something else about Anthony Richardson, but I just kind of like ran out of time. But I'm going to start with you, Daryl. Um, Garrick McGee spoke about Emory Jones and said the fact that he's going to play for the remainder of the year. Okay, he's going to be the starter for the remainder of the year. Everybody's yelling for Anthony Richardson, wanting him to play. Yeah, Anthony Richardson is a great athlete on the field, but from what we understand, though, Anthony Richardson has issues that he needs to deal with off the field.
Yeah, I don't know all the off the field stuff. I'm just going to tell you. I mean, in my opinion, um, AR has got plenty of time to prove himself in the future for the Florida Gators. Right now, it's EJ's football team, and we may see AR come in a couple plays that may be needed, 4th and 1 or goal line situations. But that's the only time I'd be bringing him in. But EJ's probably going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. I think he's the best person as far as reading the defenses. I think he's gotten better at that, especially last week. I thought he got better at it, and hopefully that will improve as it goes forward into these next two games.
Lucas, you're pretty good friends with EJ's mom and dad and all. What's their been reaction to all this stuff that's been going on?
Well, I can tell you, as someone who knows the family pretty well, it just pisses me the fuck off. Sorry for the F bomb, but
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, what are they saying? I mean, what are they telling you that you can tell us? I mean, has it gotten to the point where they're ready to move Anthony, not Anthony, but move Henry somewhere else, or are they like, I
I
mean, it's
mean, I
huh?
talk to I talk to Daryl all the time, but I haven't heard him say anything like that. I can.
Okay, no, I just wondering if you heard anything like that. Um, let's get to you because there's some big news that's come out that you posted earlier. Some recruiting news. Look at the Man Gators, one of the top when it comes to football recruiting news. Lucas is the man because he knows everything about recruiting. So, Lucas, we're going to give you the floor for a couple of minutes. We're going to give you the floor for just a couple of minutes here. Tell us what's going on from the recruiting standpoint right now.
There's a 4-star defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. His name is Chris McLean. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's a 4-star defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. It's us or Oklahoma. I've been hearing a bunch of really good stuff, but today Florida Insider Blake Alderman put in a crystal ball. But this was after director of football recruiting Steve Wilfong put in a crystal ball. Chris McLean originally wanted to commit November 10th, but as we all know, he hasn't committed yet. But I like where the Gators stand here.
That's big news to get a 4-star recruit, and in spite of everything that's been going on. Daryl, I mean, hearing all that, I mean, that's nothing but excellent news.
Yeah, I mean that is great news, and I think Dan. Obviously, we know his recruiting needs to be picked up a little bit, but he does do a fairly good job, I think, of picking guys out of the transfer portal. And his 2023 class is actually not very bad at all. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, McLean is not and just to clarify, he's not a transfer portal kind of guy. He is an actual recruit that that could very well be coming to the Gators. So that's nothing but I don't think that's anything but terrific news, especially after everything that's going on. And hopefully it trickles down to other guys that has been happening. We saw the game on Saturday. Wasn't one of the prettiest games that we have seen in Gator history, make no mistake about it. But when the chips are down, they were able to come back and win the game 70-52 over Samford. The defense played well in the second half, limiting Samford to 172 total yards of offense, held them scoreless in the third quarter, which might be the only time in which they held an opposing team scoreless in a quarter this year. I'm not sure about that. And 10 points in the fourth quarter. I took away from that game the positive thing is excellent improvement in the second half. And Lucas, I get the feeling that Christian Robinson might have a handle on this Florida Gator defense.
But I don't think he's the long-term answer, but I don't think he called a bad second half, if that makes any sense.
Well, no, yeah, it does. And I loved how they were playing a lot tight. The defense was playing a lot tighter in the second half, and they were really honing in on those cornerbacks were honing in on those receivers. Yeah, there was still some penalties that still need to be cleaned up. But let's face it, we're going to have penalties in football no matter what.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I did notice. Second half, a lot tighter, and that same energy and motivation and drive has to carry on to the game this weekend and into the Florida State game. I mean, they've got to be more aggressive. The corners have got to be aggressive. We've got to be able to have consistent play on that side of the football. If we can do that, this Florida team can really take a whole nother level.
I love, I love, we talk about the camaraderie. By the way, for the Gators, 12 penalties, 94 yards in that game. Not a very not a. I love this. Our good friend Lynn Tyndall post something, and it's great. Can Mike White have a lunch date to talk D with Dan? I love it. That is a great comment. Lynn Tyndall, thank you so much for that. That's awesome. Yeah, exactly. I think Mike White could use some point. And by the way, Florida was playing basketball tonight. They won their game against, I believe, Massachusetts. I'm not sure, but they.
University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They won their game. And by the way, to get off track of football for just a minute, the basketball team is really looking great. And look, Daryl, I like what you talk about Keontae Johnson, I believe his name is.
Like
81-45 was the score, by the way. I believe Keontae Johnson is his name, the player that played for the Gators
Yeah,
last year and fell on the court. Um, Talk about that a little bit.
yeah. I mean, I'm not 100% sure of the whole story, but I do know that he had in the Florida State game the year before had passed out or had some medical attention, and hasn't been cleared to play yet. But he was given the game ball after
Yeah,
the Gators win at home against Florida State, which I thought was great. So that he really deserved it, and hopefully we'll see him back on the court pretty soon. So
yeah. It was a great moment. Mike White walks into
yeah,
the locker room after the game, and everybody just showers him with water bottles. It was
it
such
was a good moment.
a yeah. I think it was a great moment. Um, Lucas, we've heard a lot of talk this week. Miami fired its athletic director Blake James, leaving the future of Manny Diaz in doubt as the head coach.
I personally would like Manny Diaz just because he knows Dan, he knows the system, and most importantly, the guy can fucking recruit.
Yeah, especially down south. But the question becomes, would uh, would he be able to would he be able to keep Christian Robinson on the defense? That would be a big thing. Hey, Lucas, I know you got to go. Thank you very much, and we're going to talk to you next week, buddy. Okay.
Next Thursday, I'm down.
There you go. Thanks, Lucas, for joining me. Lucas Jermaine Gator joining me on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. You know, um, one of the things still that I really loved about the way the defense played in the second half is that Zachary Carter and company were starting to finally get in that pressure up front. I forget what the sack total was, but it got Sanford rattled in the second half. And now as we go into the Missouri game, and they have a running back named Tyler Beatty, I believe his name is.
Yeah, I
Uh,
believe
very,
that's correct.
yeah, very good running back from all the highlights that I've been seeing, which is going to be a challenge for this defense. But I think that for the first time all year long, I'm confident that this defense can keep Beatty in check.
Yeah, it's very critical that they do because they're going to run the ball. So they've got to get very aggressive and be able to stop the Missouri run game because they're going to run the ball, and he's a very explosive running back. So that is my key to success against Missouri this weekend is being able to have control the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball, get to the quarterback, and cause a little bit of chaos back there. Make him pass the ball on us and allow them corners to be aggressive on the outside.
I think that for the most part, I think our trouble has been with the defensive, with our front
Mhm.
four, not being able to get to not being able to get the quarterback pressures and the sacks that we need to, which has caused a lot of problems for linebackers and especially those defensive backs. I think, and that's what I think Christian Robinson is emphasizing here. Pressure on the quarterback, make cause havoc and self destruction up front. And I think C Rob has finally may have found the answer that he needs to be successful. I'm not saying to get the defensive coordinator job. I'm talking about improve this defense to play football.
Yeah, I mean it's critical that they're able to do it, and this weekend will be a decent test for them. I mean, Missouri will. I mean, they actually may be they will be the best team we face out of these next two, in my opinion. Florida State's a rivalry game, but I think Missouri's more explosive in the run game than Florida State will have. So it is important that this is a test. This will be a first test, and then to go into an away stadium. Really, we need to get that win in an away stadium this year. We've not done that. I mean, that is important. I mean,
I
we've done
think,
it in South Florida against the Bulls, but
yeah, right.
we've got to do this in an SEC stadium and go in there and handle business because we haven't done that on any of the away games that we've traveled to in the SEC.
I was talking with the Nick Della Torre earlier, and it's like, the Alabama game was the game
Yeah,
that we were just so excited to see.
yeah.
That this
Hopes were up
defense,
here. I mean,
I
they're
mean, hopes
high.
were up here, and then all of a sudden we go to Tennessee, and things just squandered. It
Mhm.
squandered downhill, and I kind of started to think to myself, this is a team that had everything going for itself, only to see it just slide down. It makes me think that maybe they got too big for their britches and thought everything was going to be
Yeah.
easy, and they got a major wake up call. Then they didn't know what to do.
I do think Nick. I mean, I was listening. I thought he brought a good point because Miller he got hurt in that Alabama game, and I don't think people realize
Yes.
how much of a loss that was for Florida because he was definitely the he could run stop, and I don't know if I don't really know if Diamante's quite there yet, but Miller was definitely the guy. I mean, we lost him, and that I could tell that really hurt our run game defense, especially as we went forward.
Yeah, and I think that I think you know Glenn Tyndall posts something here. He says reality is last year was a smokescreen with a win for Poodles. We were still 8-4. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if it was smokescreen. I thought we had I thought that we had a very good team last year and
I'll
could
tell
be
you,
we began the making of doing something well. But for that LSU game, the shoe throwing incident just
yeah,
caused just sent
I'll
everything
tell you,
downhill from there.
I'll tell you. Last year, I felt obvious, and I'm pretty sure a lot of Florida fans felt so. I thought we were definitely, playoff bound for sure. I had bought my championship tickets in Miami before the season, even got going. So, I mean, I was ready for Florida to go make a big run, but again, it really came down to a lot of defensive plays, and uh, you know, that's where a lot of people were like, why didn't we get rid of Grantham last year? And we talked a little bit about that earlier, but it, that's where it comes down to. You put a defensive stop in the Texas A&M game last year. You take the stupid shoe throwing incident in the LSU game. You have what defensive stop in the Alabama game. I mean, the whole season last year could have been completely different, and we would have been in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, and I had such high expectations for this team. I mean, I was like you. I was thinking, give
Yeah,
it a talk, man. Then bring in somebody else. If he brought in, if he, I guarantee you, if Todd Grantham had been fired last year, or even even before the Georgia game, if he'd been fired even before the Georgia game, that would have given C-Rob 2 weeks to prepare for Georgia. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
if he had even done that, I don't think we'd be sitting here tonight talking about Dan Mullen losing his job. I
yeah.
mean, you
No,
could,
and
I don't know how you feel
yeah,
about that.
I I feel like Grantham definitely should have been let go last year. And I don't know. It's really hard to get rid of a coach in the middle of the season. After the LSU game, and then you're going into the Georgia game in 2 weeks. I mean, that was kind of a tough one to let him go too. But anyway, the call's been made, and I think finally Dan's made that call. Whether he did it on his own or he had some other motivations, the call's been made, and we got to fix the defense. Dan's got to make that hire and got to find the right guy for it because it's going to be very critical. The talent is there. The talent's at Florida. People talk about recruiting. I mean, our recruiting classes haven't been terrible. I mean, if you go back and you look at the
No,
last 10
no.
years, we've been in the top 15. I don't care if you're in the top 25 in recruiting, you can get those kids to go play. I mean,
Of
you can get them
course.
kids to go play. So,
But that's the key.
no,
That's the key right there. Getting the kids to
yeah, you
play.
got to get them to
Getting
play. And
get them
I mean,
get them fired up. And um, you know, um, and of course, the Lynn Tyndall fallbacks on the comment for when he told, in fact, this is something. It was Fudge who told Scott Strickland to keep him another year. So
Yeah,
if it was the president of the school, which I'm not doubting Lynn, but if it was indeed the president of the school telling Scott Strickland to keep him another year, then that becomes another story altogether. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've heard that story, and even Nick, I think it's pretty much a
I,
Facebook group.
well,
I will tell you why I think why Grantham got another year. The only reason why Grantham, in
money.
my opinion, got another year was because 2020 was a COVID season. Only reason. If it would have been a normal season, I think he would have been gone. I
That is a
think he would
great
have
point.
been gone
Well, I think
because
that
there was a lot of there was a lot of games where we had players sitting out. I mean, even in the LSU game, we only had 64 scholarship players in that game, and that was a home game last year. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying the only reason why I think Grantham got a bye from the 2020 season was because it was COVID. If that would have not have been a factor, I think he would have been fired last year.
I mean, I didn't bother to think about the COVID situation, but I think there's
Yeah.
something to that. He is Gator Booster, usually the animal, on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. As we get ready for Michigan, I am I'm really excited about this game, as I said before, because I believe that this could be the turning point for the remainder of the season. They have every opportunity. Look, they have every. First of all, I'm going to tell you right now, I do not think the is gone. I think that he can still lose the final two games and still be gone. Because they have a lot of money that they would have to pay out to a lot of people, and the school just not ready for that. Okay, so I think from the standpoint of firing Todd Grantham, I think in that meeting, I think they told him that he would be back for another year, even though they're not saying it. Okay, I'll say this much though, that if we saw when Miami fired his AD, we saw where some other moves were made. We saw where not Frank Beamer, but the head coach of Virginia Tech, Justin Fuente, he got fired this week too. Some moves in college football are being made. Okay, so now if the Gators wanted to make a move, they could have done this by now. Okay, and they're not. So that tells me that I think that they're willing to give Dan Mullen, give him an opportunity to do it and fix the things that need to be fixed. And now with the thing that's happened in Miami, it gives reason to believe that maybe Manny Diaz would want to come in. So
Yeah, so I do think Dan gets another year, and I think this is the reason why you've seen the firing of Todd Grantham midseason, because I think that bought him the next year. Because we all know where the problem is. I mean, the problem is our defense. Dan Mullen is putting up points. There's a couple games. Okay, the Kentucky game, we didn't put up as many points. Well, we got 100 and what? I don't know. 112
yeah,
yards in offensive penalties. You can't score points when you have that many penalties. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
No.
So, but anyway, beside that point, Dan Mullen putting up points in the SEC. His defense isn't stopping people. I mean, if you'd have told me we would have gone and played Alabama in the SEC championship game last year and put up almost 46 points and lose that football game, I would have been like, you're crazy. But they're putting up more points than us because our defense isn't stopping people. Even in the A&M game at A&M last year, we had plenty of opportunities to win that football game with a defensive stop. So I do think Dan gets another year. I think he gets another year because he made the call that he needed to do. I could be completely wrong. I don't know.
But no, I think he gets another year. And like Linton says, if he loses 4 games, it's going to set us back. I don't know. I'm not sure about the setting back part, but I think that if it definitely Dan Mullen goes out, loses 4 games next year, I think that there's question. Do you think Dan Mullen is? Do you think? Oh, yeah. Do you think Dan Mullen is a motivator? And
I mean,
I say that, and let me quantify that, okay? Because for those that are watching him, before they're watching him tonight, by the way, William Fenney, Lynn Tyndall, Susan Cunningham, and of course, Colin McGowan, thank you for joining us and commenting. I really do appreciate you commenting tonight. Um, I say that from the standpoint of this. Somehow or another, somebody released audio tape the Florida Georgia game with Kirby Smart, and he was really getting fired up, things like that. Dan Mullen spoke at the press conference on Monday, and he talked about how when they do their halftime, they do like first 3 4 minutes of doing their personal time, then they get together and do a group session, and then they'll gather the team around and talk. And I don't. I don't know. I don't see Dan Mullen as one of these big motivators like Kirby Graham, but I also don't think that it's. I don't know if it's warranted or not. I mean, you're about your comments.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's times where he is. I don't know if he's the raw guy. Look, I will tell you this. One thing I've seen from Dan, in the Sanford game, and maybe because the pressure was really on, but he finally stepped into that defensive huddle and just he was letting into them guys pretty early on in that game. So I mean, he was. I think he can get guys fired up for the game. I mean, everybody's got their own kind of mix of things. I like Dan's personality personally.
I do too.
He's
I
you know
I,
he's
I,
had a
I
he's had a rough go of it this year. Of course, he has a rough go of it. I mean, when you lose a game, it's hard to do a press conference. So you try to be motivated as much as possible, but maybe this year he could have done a little bit better on some things said or done. But do I think he's not a motivator? No, I don't think that's the case either.
you know, Lynn Tyndall brings up a point of recruiting. Okay, those sheets that they gave that information that they gave out about the money that they spend on recruiting, I think it's so I think there's it's a misnomer when you stop and think about it, because number one, that they use their own planes. They have uh, they're trying to build a new facility. Okay, um, and these guys are recruiting. They're out there. They're out on the road watching. Um, they're out there watching um, these guys play. Um, let me just say something here in a moment. I'd like to get something else on him. He said, just keep an eye on Napier, or Napier. Billy Napier, right? Is that who it is? Is that who that is? I've heard of that name before. But anyway, but nevertheless, I've seen where it's such a misleading. That's a misleading thing, considering
Yeah,
these guys fly out to these schools.
yeah. There is a little misconception on that, and I've seen that post. I personally shared the recruiting numbers.
Yeah, I've been remember you that. Yeah,
Florida does, like you said, they do have their own aviation program, which saves them at
tons of
least a
money.
million dollars.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how much money, but and then again, Florida is getting caught up. I know it's kind of crazy to believe, but Florida's kind of getting caught up on facilities compared to other universities. Just a few years ago, we finally completed an indoor facility, which probably should have happened years ago. Being in Florida, you're now finishing up a standalone football facility, almost $96 million there, which should be done by next season, which will help recruiting tremendously. If anybody's seen that, it's tremendous. It's beautiful, and that's going to help recruiting. And then we have in the future there'll be some big time changes to the stadium. So is Florida behind? I don't know. Florida spends money. They land helicopters. They land helicopters at football fields. They recruit. It's so that's a little. I think it's a little stretch. I mean, if you look at the recruiting classes, we are recruiting well. we are not recruiting in the top 5. I mean,
No.
but we are in the top
But you know,
15 recruiting classes.
but you know what though? I will say this: even though we might not be recruiting in the top 5, some of the best players are your 3
Yeah,
stars and your 4
yeah. I
stars.
mean, let's face
You
it,
don't have
Kyle.
you don't have to recruit all these
Mhm.
5 stars
No,
players to come, because a lot of times they don't pan out.
yeah,
Lynn made an
a five
interesting
star.
point. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, a 5-star guy doesn't mean
Dilly
nothing
squad.
to me. I want a guy. I could take a 1-star guy if he wants to play football. I mean, you've got plenty of examples out there. Antonio Callaway, Kyle Trask. I mean, Kyle Pitts. I mean, there's plenty of guys that were not these 5-star guys that have become really good football players. I mean, there's a list. That's just a few of them. There's a long list under Dan Mullen of lesser stars. I would say lesser stars that have become very talented football players.
Speaking of former Gators, Jeff Driscoll used to play with the Florida
Yeah, I
Gators.
mean,
I believe
nobody
I
ever
believe
thought he would ever do anything.
yeah, okay. So now I believe he's with the Houston Texans. They're going to move him to tight end.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah, I mean that's cool. And Lynn makes a couple of comments here that I'll just briefly touch on real quick. That he says, and I'll point out something that he says: the difference is UF does invest into a head coach that can hire what he needs, which says that this administration is tying Dan Mullen down. And even I remember Jim McElwain saying something
yeah,
to that effect. So maybe from an administration standpoint, they got to start thinking about what they want to do. By the way, Billy Napier, he's head coach of University of Louisiana. I don't know if I wouldn't want to bring in a guy like that. I want somebody who has Gator. I just want to get. I want somebody who's a Gator, who knows what it is to know what this thing is all about right here. Got anything else you want to share?
yeah, and it started in the McElwain era of the building facilities up to where we need them to be, and it should have been happened years ago. It probably should have happened after the first national championship, but the facilities are just catching up to some of these big time places, which is, and they will be by the start of next college football season. When you guys walk up to the Swamp, it is going to be the most beautiful standalone football facility that you'll see across the country.
Real quick, what do they want to do? What do they want to do with the state? They want to make the seats smaller at the stadium. Is that what Scott Strickland's
So what
plan?
what I've heard is, and there's a misconception about this too. It's like, no, we want more people. But I think the misconception is if you sat in some of the seatings that have, chair backs and things like that versus, bleacher seating. I mean, anytime you put the chair backs in, you lose seating. So I think you're going to see in the Swamp that there's going to be more, chair backs installed.
Oh,
And this
okay.
is just my personal belief. I have no idea. I mean, I just think that there's going to be a little bit more luxury added to the stadium, maybe less capacity, but a little bit more luxury.
Okay. Hey, listen. We have talked for nearly an hour, nearly 30 minutes. I know you want to get out of here. You got things. Um, let's see here. Glenn Tyndall says that Napier has Florida ties. He was the offensive coordinator of Clemson and recruited Watson in the first national championship. Urban came. He says that Urban came from Utah. Yeah, I get all that. He makes a pretty interesting point, but at this point in time, I'm willing to give them on another year. Let's see what happens after that. I know you got to go. I need to touch on some Buccaneer stuff here. As we always like to say, if you're not a Gator, you're prone to be Gator bait. If you got a chance next week, join me. We'll talk about the game next week.
Hey, we'll do. Hopefully, after a Missouri or a Florida win, beating Missouri.
There you go. And by the way, I will be up in Missouri for the game. I'll be doing some Facebook live. I'll be doing some Facebook live stuff, doing some recordings, bring it behind the scenes of what goes on at an away game. So
make it as loud as you can up there.
We're gonna do that. I just gotta find a place where people tailgate before the game. That's what I'm trying to
Mhm.
find. So I have
If it
no
was a
idea.
home game, if it was a home game, you could be with me
Well,
tailgating.
I'm gonna hold you to that. No
Oh, we'll
doubt
do
about
it.
it. There you go.
You can come
Thanks,
down
Dale.
this one.
Appreciate
All right,
it.
go Gators.
Thank you, Dale Horn, Mr. Gator
Thank you.
Brewster himself, joining on this edition of the Animal Football Insider. Let's remove you from the room, son. Okay, there he goes. All right, so give him a copy of the home game. He's out. All right. So we talked about the Gators for nearly an hour. Let's talk a little bit about the Buccaneers and what's going on with them. They took on the Washington Redskins Sunday afternoon in Washington, and it wasn't the game that everybody wanted. Behind Tom Brady's 2 interception on the first 2 drives and a lackluster effort by the offense and the defense, the Buccaneers fell at the hands of the Washington football team. Now, 29-19 was the final score. Now, in that game also, they suffered a devastating injury in the fact that Vita Vea, the defensive lineman for the Buccaneers, he suffered an injury. I know today that he was walking in a boot. The injury report on him, I believe that he is listed as questionable right now. Um, and this is one of the things I like about my show is that I can um, let's see, do anything I want here and do it on the fly because I don't like to always be prepared. I like to do things on the fly. Right now, and then remember they play on Monday, so they still have some time to get some things together. Antonio Brown still has an ankle injury. More on Antonio Brown here in just a minute. Antonio Brown has an ankle injury. D. Delaney suffered a concussion. They don't know if he's going to play for this weekend. Chris Godwin is still nursing the foot injury. Gronkowski has a back injury. Jason Pierre-Paul continues to have that shoulder hand injury. Vita Vea has a knee injury. He was walking around in a boot. Now, let's get back to the Antonio Brown situation because there was some news that came out today. Um, um, let's see here. Um, let's talk about some of the things that's going on, especially with Antonio Brown. Today, there was a report that came out that Antonio Brown had presented to the Buccaneers a false COVID-19 card, the vaccine card. He gave them a false card. At least that's what I've been told. Now, this came out. This came out earlier today. Since that time, the Buccaneers released statements saying that they were confident that this did not happen. They said that the NFL approved of um, all the vaccines that were given to the team. They're fully confident that he did not cheat, as you might say. I think that is the best way to describe it. Um, what's funny about this is that this has been floating around on Twitter all afternoon, and the Buccaneers even came out with a statement on this. However, on their website, they haven't been saying anything. Um, and what it is that he secured a fake vaccination card. That's what it is. He secured a fake vaccination card. Um, and the Buccaneers claim that they inspected it, that everything's fine, that is not a true story. The Buck says, and then the NFL says, we are aware of the report. We've been in contact with the club. We are going to review the matter. Now, the Buccaneers put out a statement. I'm trying to see if I can't get that statement here in just a minute here. I'm hopeful that Pro Football Talk has this information here. Let's see here. Okay. Here we go. Okay, this is a statement from the Buccaneers. This is what they said, and I quote: after an extensive educational process conducted throughout our organization this past off season, highlighting the benefits of COVID-19 vaccines, We received completed vaccination cards from all Tampa Bay Buccaneer players and submitted the required information to the NFL through the established process in accordance with league policy. The statement goes on to say all vaccination cards were reviewed by Buccaneer personnel and no irregularities was observed. So the Buccaneers are sticking with, are saying that all this claiming that Antonio Brown um, presented a fake vaccination card, they're just not buying it. Now, yes, and yes, yes. This is a story that came out today. It's been on Twitter all day, all afternoon, and so the NFL is going to be investigating this, and they're going to see what happens. Of course, this is coming on the verge of Antonio of um, somebody help me here real quick. Quarterback for Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. Saying going through that story, saying he got vaccinated, then he didn't get vaccinated. It's just a total mess and gives this team a definitely black eye. Make no mistake about it. But we're going to be following this story as we move along the process. Bucks play on Monday night, and they take on the New York Giants at Raymond James Stadium. So that should be a great game in itself. Um, of course, but there's football this weekend. Some games were already played, including Jim McElwain's Central Michigan. They played on Wednesday night, and they won. Louisville is at Duke right now. Let's see, and they're playing right now. Other games to watch out for from the top 25. Michigan on Friday will be Houston. That game will be on ESPN2. Saturday, Charleston Southern will be at Georgia. And I like how when like Charleston Southern scores the opening drive, ESPN will break in and will say Charleston Southern with an opening score. Gators Bulldogs are down 7-0. It's a big thing. So I kind of find it funny. Michigan State will be playing at Ohio State. That is an 11 o'clock game. That'd be a great game. Iowa State will be at Oklahoma. Boy, there's some great. I didn't realize there's some great games that will be going on. Florida State will be playing at Boston College. That's also going to be another great game. Michigan will be away against Maryland. Nebraska against Wisconsin. Virginia, Pittsburgh. We talked about the Florida Missouri game that'll be on. Auburn will be South Carolina. That's going to be on ESPN. Let's see. Oregon will be against Utah. South Alabama, Tennessee. Virginia Tech will be against Miami. I'm kind of surprised, and I'm still in shock about Justin Fuentes leaving. I really am. I really thought that he was going. That's something I never expected to see happen. And by the way, do not be surprised if you see Dan Mullen's name be mentioned with that job. So that's something that we want to watch out for. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm just saying that be on the lookout for that. Now, games involving the National Football League for this week. New England's at Atlanta right now. They're at the half. Indianapolis at Buffalo, Baltimore, Chicago. Green Bay would be at Minnesota. 49ers would be at Jacksonville. Dallas will be at Kansas City. Pittsburgh will play Sunday night against the Rams. And Monday night, the Giants will be at home against the Buccaneers. That would be a 7:15 Eastern Central Time start. 8:15 on the West, on the East Coast. Okay, again, we'll be in Missouri. We'll be in Missouri next week. I mean, this coming weekend. Bring you some reports. Hopefully, talk to a couple of people. We get the opportunity, but I'm looking forward to a great time. We'll be back here next Thursday night, and hopefully, we can talk about a Gator win. We can talk about a Buccaneer win as well, and just have a great time. I want to thank Susan Cunningham, Len Tyndall, Lacan McGraw-Long, of course, Gator Brewster, Lucas Mann, Nick Delatorre joining me. You guys made this, you guys, you all did an awesome job making my show the way that it is, and I really do appreciate you guys coming on tonight and watching me. Again, next week, Thursday night, another great show. Hopefully we can talk about another great win. For everybody that joined me tonight and everybody that's out there, y'all have yourself a great weekend. And if you're not a Gator, you're primed to be Gator bait. Good night, everybody, and God bless.
Thank you for watching Animal Football Insider. Be sure to join us every Thursday night here on Facebook Live.